So I woke up this morning and I read a disturbing article about Trevor Mallard being taken to court by a girl who was 11 at the time, 11 years old, and complaining that she had been traumatized because Trevor had turned on the sprinklers. And this is at a time when a lot of damage was done to the grounds at Parliament. And yes, to be fair, there were chalk drawings in the ground threatening to assassinate Jacinda Ardern, the Prime Minister. And not everybody at the protests were exactly the same, but a great deal of them held the same kind of views. And it was time to string up some of these politicians, and why didn't they come out and face their fate at the hands of a baying crowd? So anyway, Trev decided that it was a good idea to kind of like try and get them to move on, much like the police. However, the police were saying, don't do this, Trev. But no one can tell the Speaker of the House what to do. You know, you can't tell Jerry to allow tikanga in the House, to allow haka. You get 21 days suspended for that. But Trev, Trev's going to be taken to court because he stood up to people by turning a sprinkler on. Property rights. You know, at the moment we're hearing a lot about property rights and takings, and the Speaker is basically just like a property owner when it comes to the buildings of Parliament. They're his property. So you've got Goldsmith saying it's time for vigilante action, you know, take the law into your own hands in retail crime. But when it comes to Trev, well, you know how it is. We've got to attack Trev and punish Trev, and a child who's been traumatized when they were 11. They didn't do anything about it, but now years later, the child is traumatized apparently.
But while I was recording this, it came to my attention that Brian Tither, a G News reader, reported that Ryan Bridge of the Herald Now was highlighting this story about suing Trevor Mallard for turning the sprinkler on, when Ryan Bridge was also the AM host who suggested that the hose be turned on the kids who got on the roof of the youth detention centre rather than being coaxed down with KFC. What a hypocrite.
You know, it sounds like a bit of a crock of shit to me. Anyway, the other news that we faced this morning was that Luxon is back after having put his hand on the back of world leaders at NATO, reciting the same old spin about how there's no prosperity without security. Like something that he was just taught, you know, to sell soap, you know, when he was a soap salesman over in Canada, selling and regurgitating and repeating lines over and over in the media, getting headlines all the time. Meanwhile, it's like we're listening to the same old stuck record. The rust is set into our system, and we believe in neoliberalism. We believe in the Financial Responsibility Act from the 1990s, from the era of Ruth Richardson, because Ruth Richardson, you know, she's been honoured by this government for the mother of all budgets, which brought so much harm to all New Zealanders. And now, you know, we're going to carry on in this way. We're going to mock people that say there might be a better way, that it might be worth considering some alternatives. But no, we're actually just going to focus on Luxon and Davey Boy Seymour and how he's doxing academics and running people down and saying, no, what I just said is not what I just said, and you don't understand what I understand, and you're all idiots, but what can I say? And the media fawning and falling over to clap and applaud this kind of absolute shambles. You know, it's the stuff that we should never put up with in this country. Where are the adult, real people in leadership? Have we really voted for change? No. I wrote this morning how we haven't voted for change. If you think you voted for change, you voted for the status quo. You voted to go back to neoliberalism. You voted for racism. You voted to get rid of the Treaty of Waitangi. Why? Because, well, do you understand what Te Treaty says? Do you understand the nature of integrity or honouring a contract between two sovereign nations? Or are you just somebody that fills in the gaps with a kind of an attitude and ignorance? I don't know, but you can, you know, if you're a National and ACT voter, you're voting for that kind of ignorance at the moment. You're worried about things like whether people are woke. And what does woke mean? Well, woke means people are aware of discrimination. If you're not aware of discrimination, maybe it's because you haven't been discriminated against. But I would have to say that it looks to me like we are discriminating against Te Pāti Māori. It looks like we don't have any room at the table for anything different. It looks like we're a nation of people that quickly leap to a racist kind of position without understanding why. Why do we continue to follow neoliberal laws that were embedded to keep us doing this? The embedded Financial Responsibility Act, the Reserve Bank Act, these acts that make us continue to actually just look at surpluses and think that that's success when you've got all this terrible inequality in our society. It's really sort of like getting old, and it's like people are facing a winter now. The lights are out. They're unable to actually go out. The main news is the weather, the fact that it's raining because, the weather's getting worse and worse. We're getting big natural weather events happening all the time. At the same time, our government is pulling out of climate change kind of groups and making out that it's not a fossil fuel hungry crowd of people pandering to the petroleum industry or the gas industry, when in fact it's pretty obvious, that Shane Jones is out there on some kind of bloody ticket to kill Freddy the Frog and serve coal up to everybody. Coal in a climate crisis.
The government's turned the taps off. Nicola Willis has stalled construction, the building industry, and subsidised tobacco companies huge amounts. Nobody's listening to us. The government has got its own agenda, and the seats are all empty out there when it comes to small businesses. They're hearing the same old wax, the waxing spin that they've heard before about growing the economy. And there are all these distortions made by targets in the health system at the moment as we privatise. The average man has to still bring home the bacon somehow and make ends meet. But it's getting squeezier and squeezier, and it's hard to have a heart, really, when your rates are going up, your power bills are going up, transport's going up, everything's going up, the price of butter's going up, and businesses are flat. Transaction credit card spending is down. Back in the day, we used to have a pretty good leader and we talked about reducing child poverty, but now that's going back up. We're not getting any new trade deals that we used to have. In fact, we're just getting a whole lot of triggered men who are upset about Jacinda Ardern, trying to attack her because she's successful. But, if we all really wanted to be successful, we should be more like her and be something that we're not. Maybe we can not just aspire for these trophies on the wall, but actually a better community. We could fill the seats. There's room for everyone. Maybe we can actually redistribute the system, get the businesses going, invest in our infrastructure, deal with climate change, and get rid of this goddamn idiot that's in charge of the country. Get rid of Luxon now.